on the Home Energy Score website in a few days. And finally, we encourage you to ask questions. Use the question and answer section of your webinar panel, and we'll be able to see your questions. We'll read through all of them at the end. But continue to put them in as soon as you have your question. And with that, we'll get started.
Thank you, Maddie. This is Glenn Dickey. I'm the technical lead for the Home Energy Score team. I also have with me Erik Lundquist. He's the guy who makes all of this work. He's the guy who processes the enrollment requests, gets you guys up and running, gets you into the sim. Once you pass and are ready to start scoring houses, he gets your account set up there, and he answers all of the questions that come through from you guys as you work through all of this stuff. I'm just the guy. I'm just the figurehead. But what we've done here is we had a first version of this. We've gotten a lot of feedback. We've made what we think are a lot of very good improvements to it, and we're going to go through and show you what this is, what we have here. The idea here is that originally when we set up Home Energy Score, you had to be either a building analyst or a resident rater, and then there was some more building science focused training to become qualified. That tended to limit who could do this. We did some research, we got some smart people involved, and came up with this alternative online simulation training so that people who had general knowledge about homes but maybe not about energy efficiency could go through this, get the knowledge they needed in order to be able to do this for us. So that's kind of the background on how we got to where we are. I'm going to turn this now over to Erik, and he's going to show you some of the documentation that we've put together to help you get through this. He's going to talk to how this interacts with the simulation itself. I will show you a simulation, but primarily we've put all of this. Erik has put all of this documentation and guidance together to help you get through this, and I highly recommend that you spend time with that guidance because it will make your path through the simulation much easier. So with that, I will turn it over to Erik.
Thanks, Glenn. This is Erik Lundquist. I'm the technical coordinator for the Home Energy Score program. Can everybody see my screen? It's a blue Home Energy Score screen. Can you all see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm going to switch here and show you a PDF. Essentially, candidates for the Home Energy Score, to become Home Energy Score assessors, need to work through a partner program, and once their partner wants to register them for the Home Energy Score program, they need to go through the SIM training and testing. This is the main document I send to the candidates during registration, and it's about an 8 or 9 page PDF that tells them the computer requirements they'll need to operate the SIM. The SIM does require a 64-bit processor, which most computers have nowadays, and a couple other requirements. It does not work on Internet Explorer. However, the SIM will work on most other browsers such as Microsoft Edge, Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, particularly the 64-bit version, and Apple Safari. But I'm not going to go through all these instructions. I'm just trying to point out this is the kind of resources we provide. This is the first thing the assessor candidates will receive from me. With the SIM, they can sign in with a Google account, or they can create an Interplay account. Interplay is the company that created the 3D SIM. Essentially, it's a very simple sign-in process. If they use the Interplay, it's sign-in. They can just enter basically their name and address. We do stress that no aliases are allowed. If somebody signs in through an alias or a Google account that does not have their real name on it, they will not get credit for the training and testing. As you can see, there's a lot of screenshots on this to guide them through the login process. Fairly straightforward. And then to get started in the first house, everything's in this document for them to get started. I'm just going to scroll down to the last part here. It does go over the requirements. We currently, with the new SIM, the requirements to get through the process successfully, they have to score 3 training homes, 3 of the training homes in challenge mode with a 90 or above, a score of 90 or above, and then score a test home with a score of 90 or above, and then there's a multiple choice test after that. This document explains all those steps in a pretty straightforward fashion. At the near the bottom of this document is a troubleshooting section in case they're having technical difficulties with their browser, or they're not sure which browser to use or which one they have. This should help out there. And then at the very end, there's it also tells them how to upgrade, for instance, the Google Chrome browser to 64-bit if they don't have that. And then at the end, there's a list of definitions for the home energy score. This is the home screen of the new SIM, and this is on the home screen under primary resources. You'll see there's an introduction video, a SIM user's manual, step-by-step guide to Training House 1, step-by-step guide to Training House 2, which is significantly more complex than Training House 1, and a home energy score overview, and then there's an assessor calculator. The assessor calculator is critical for getting through the SIM, and it's also something that's used in the real world in assessing homes for the home energy score. And we're using the same calculator for both the SIM and the real world. So it's a very valuable resource. The SIM user's manual essentially is again, it's a pretty long document or slide presentation, but it does cover just about everything a candidate needs to know to understand the SIM and what's required and how it works. And it's a good reference document that they can use anytime they're in the SIM. It covers anything from the basics up to certain inputs in certain areas. So as Glenn mentioned, we strongly recommend that candidates use these resources and refer to them because I do get questions on the SIM a lot from candidates. Many of those questions are, the answers are located in these documents already, and what I do with the candidates is simply refer them back to those documents to get them to look at the documents, and they'll understand. So the step-by-step guide to Training House 1 is essentially is just what it says. It's step-by-step. It goes through each of the inputs for Training House 1, Scenario 1, tells the user how to find the answer to those inputs, how to calculate them in some cases, and it even gives them the answers for that first house so that they can see how it all works. So essentially, a user can use this guide during their first scenario 1 on Training House 1, to go through, and like I said, it gives them all the answers and tells them exactly how it comes about with those answers. So it kind of sets them up so that they can go through and try other scenarios. The step-by-step guide to Training House 2 is essentially an addendum to the first training guide. In the SIM, Training House 2 is much more complex than Training House 1. And so this addendum simply goes over the differences, the different requirements for Training House 2. Training House 2 does require that a second roof attic component be entered, a second foundation component be entered, and a second HVAC system entered. And it is complicated. There's cathedral ceilings. So it's complicated, but it more closely resembles real-world situations out there. Every house isn't going to be as vanilla as Training House 1. So this kind of takes the candidate into a little bit more complexity with the home energy score. And as usual, I mean, I'm not sure if Glenn will point this out, but the clipboard, what you're seeing here on the right in this screenshot, the clipboard in the sim does almost precisely mimic the data entries in the home energy score itself. So I think that's, I'll go over the home energy score overview real quick. This guide is basically a guide to the home energy score itself, not the sim, but the actual home energy score. And it's a nuts and bolts guide that tells them everything about the score, but essentially they need to read this in order to pass the multiple choice test, because the multiple choice test, many of the questions, it's a 20 question test that comes at the very end. Many of those questions do come out of the information in this guide. So from there, I think I've covered about everything. Oops, let me get back to Glenn. If you want to pick it up from there, and if there was anything I missed, let me know.
Thanks, Eric. You did well. I'm going to answer a few of the questions that have come through since Eric started talking. This is focused mostly on the sim. There are a few questions about the home energy score itself that I had here. I'll hit those at a very high level, but the home energy score website will provide answers to some of these as well. Is the HES the same as the HERS index? No, it's not. We're focused primarily on existing homes, although we can score new homes. The home energy score does not use a reference house for determining the score, and it's not meant to be used as a code compliance score either. As I said, our website provides a little more information about that kind of thing, so you're welcome to go there and try to get further information on that. There is not a fee to use the sim, but you do have to sign up through a partner. The recorded webinar, a link to that will be provided to you afterwards. Energy savings are calculated through the tool, the software itself, so each improvement has its savings determined by the estimated energy savings in the model. To get the web address, you have to sign up for the sim. To take the sim, you have to sign up through a partner. So you'll be provided that web address when you sign up. As I said, there is no reference home. You do not have to go anywhere to take the test. The test is made up of basically two parts. There are three houses that you'll work through to train on. So there's training house 1, 2, and 3. There's a training mode and a testing mode. The training mode is to get you comfortable with that house. The testing mode, you have to do a 90 or better on it. Once you've done 90 or better on the three houses, there is another house that you have not seen before that you have to do, again, a 90 on. Previously, there were two test houses. Each of the challenge houses required that you score an 80, and there were two test houses that you then had to score a 90 on. We've made the changes because people were able to get an 80 without grasping all of the concepts we're trying to teach here, and then we're failing the test house. So we've raised the requirement on the challenge houses, but reduced the number of testing houses. And then, as Erik indicated at the end, there's a test that's just about the score itself, the home energy score in general. That's very simple, and the presentation that Erik showed you provides you most of the information you need to know in order to pass that test. But again, it's not proctored. You don't have to go to a test center to take those tests. It's just as you pass each section, the next section is open to you so you can get to it. In answer to what is a partner, it's the local organization that oversees the assessors. Okay, that covers most of the questions, I think, up to this point. I am going to go ahead and work through a sim. Now, I'll tell you right now that Erik probably could do this better and faster than I could, but that's part of the reason why I'm going to do it. I work through it probably a little bit slower than he would, and the way that I work through it may not be the way that you would work through it. There's nothing that says you have to do it any particular way. Again, I strongly reinforce that you work through the documentation that Erik provides. It will make your life much easier. We have had people who did not follow the documentation, jumped right into it, and found themselves flailing fairly early on. So as Erik indicated, the clipboard here is going to mimic the home energy score, our interface, the interface that the DOE provides out on the internet. Now, there are other softwares that are available that can work with the home energy score. Each of those interfaces is what they are. It may not follow this and probably will not follow this exactly, but it might be similar. So we have information about the house in general. We're going to look at the roof and the attic, the foundation. We're going to collect some information about the walls, the windows and the skylights, and then the heating, cooling, and hot water systems. There's some general information up here in this little box, in the comments box. Most of that's going to translate directly down to here. This is typically information that you would get from the homeowner while out at the house. We have a house footprint to help you calculate house square footages, and for each level there will be a different floor plan. So in Training House 2 and Training House 3, you'll see a floor B with the footprint for those. And then lastly, we have a calculator to help you calculate your areas. And then down here in the lower left-hand corner, we've got a few tools to help you collect the data as well. So I'm going to start off by doing a few things first. Actually, I opened the wrong tab. I like to calculate the square footage of the house first thing. And so we have two basic boxes here. We've got one that's 28 feet by 16 feet. So I'm going to put that in here. Would you let me know when I get to 340? Mm-hmm. And then we have another box here that's 28 by 25. And so we know our square footage is 1,148 square feet. We're going to use that a couple of times. Another thing I do when I'm out in front of the house is find out the orientation. So this is the front of the house. The top of the screen here is the front of the house. Here's our compass. I'm going to line up the red end with our north end. And we now know that the house is facing south. We're going to close our compass with the red X at the top. and we'll start entering a little bit of our data. So we know from up here that the house was built in 1960. And if I can type, this will go faster. One thing I didn't point out was that we have 2 bedrooms. You'll notice there's a green X on the right side. This indicates you got the answer correct. This is sort of a fast feedback sort of thing. Just because you get one wrong doesn't necessarily mean that you should stop and start over again. You do get a report at the end that tells you how many points each thing counts for. I'm going to go ahead and say that there are 3 windows or 3 bedrooms here, and it will tell you that that's incorrect. You can't go back and change it at that point, but you can't. Doesn't mean you can't move on. We know that this is a 1-story house. If we go inside, we have, and also here across the top, we have what we call our teleport button. So having you can use your cursor keys to move around the sim, so up and down and left and right. But you can also teleport into the different spaces in the house. If we open our tape measure, it tells us that on this floor it's 9 feet tall. Now, given that this is only a 1-story house, we know that our average ceiling height is 9 feet. We calculated our conditioned floor area already. We know that our house faces south. And up here it tells us that we did do a blower door test and that we got a value of 1900 CFM50. So we're going to enter both of those numbers. So the first page was pretty easy. I'm actually going to, let's go up to the attic now. Oh, we'll take a quick stop at the roof. Let's go to roof because we're going to need some roof information here. And then, so we noticed that these are shingles and that it's kind of a brown color. Now we're going to go back, we're going to go into the attic and start looking at what we've got going on in the attic, because here we need information about our roof and our attic and our insulation values up here. So anytime you see one of these red dots flashing, you want to click on it. It's going to tell you something important. So in this case, we're going to click on here, and it's going to show us a ruler, and it's going to tell us that we've got 3 inches of insulation in this case. There's a couple of pieces of information we need while we're up here, because we're going to value the R value of the insulation based on the type of insulation, the depth of the insulation, and how well it's installed.
Let me just mention, hey Glenn,
yep.
Let me just mention, Glenn's in the assessor calculator now.
Yep.
Something that I mentioned earlier, that the candidates should download, one of the first things they should do, it's in the instructions, but that's the assessor calculator he was just in.
And I will go back to, thank you, Eric. So we need the depth, we need the type, and we need how well it's installed. So we have, actually, the view photo is something you can look at that you've actually probably seen, rather than looking at the graphic. This is what it would actually look like in the attic. So we know that this is a fiberglass. It's very well installed, and the ruler tells us that we've got 3 inches. So we're going to go over here and we're going to enter that information just like we found it. And that's going to tell us that we've got an R8 insulation value. Now there is another red dot here. It says the attic hatch makes up 5% of the floor area and that there's no insulation there. We're going to go back to our calculator because we need to average out what the R value is for that floor space. So we know that 95% of the floor is an R8 based on the calculation we did right here. And we know that 5% of the floor area is an R0. So we now know that our attic insulation is an R4. Our overall attic insulation is an R4. So we can now we can now enter the information we need for our attic. So we've got 1,148 square feet. 1,148 square feet of attic. Again, it's a single-story house. It's a flat ceiling. We have a standard roof. There's no shiny stuff on the underside. There's no insulation on the underside. We know that we have shingles. There is no insulation on the underside of the roof. And we're going to call our roof color medium dark. We have an unconditioned attic. And we're going to round off to the nearest R value. So we're going to choose an R3. So that's the information we need for the attic. Now we're going to go down to crawl space. It's a lot easier than actually walking around the house, right? So we're going to do the same sort of thing. Big red spot here is going to tell us how much insulation we have. It looks like 7 inches. So again, we're going to go back to our calculator. This time we only have to do it once because we only have one value. So again, we have fiberglass. We have a bat. It's installed well. And we have 7 inches. So we have R18 there in that crawl space. Notice that we have a vented crawl space. We've got the lattice here. We've got an opening here. So we should have all the information we need for our foundations. So again, we've got a one-story house, so it's 1,148 square feet. We have a vented crawl space. There's no insulation around the perimeter. Oops, I chose the wrong one. That should be the R18 there. Got ahead of myself. There is no insulation around the perimeter. So this should be R18 rather than R0. Now we're going to go get some information about our walls. So we're going to go back out to the front of the house. And this big red dot on the front of the house is going to give us the information we need about the walls. This works a little better if we line up. So we have a 24-inch on center. We've got wood frame with wood, asbestos, or fiber cement exterior sheathing. We're going to put those away. So this is not a townhouse. So, and by the way, this home energy score should only be used for single-family homes and townhouses or row houses. It's not meant for multifamily apartments, condominiums, or mobile homes. Are the walls the same on all sides? In the sim, they are. They're always the same on all 4 sides. Based on what the hotspot just told us, we know that it's a wood frame, and we know that we have asbestos or wood fiber exterior. As far as the insulation goes, we're going to do that by vintage in the sim. So the house was built in 1960. We got that information from our comments. That means that we've got 24-inch 2x6, so we know that that's 4.5 inches. And our guidance says that we're going to derate that to fair. So again, we're going to come back in here. I'm going to take a shortcut. We're going to rate that fair. We're going to say 4.5 inches, and that's going to give us an R8. So again, we're going to round to the closest. We're going to choose R7. We're now done with our walls. Now we need for our windows and skylights. We don't have any skylights here in test house 3. There are skylights, so you will have to do this when you get to there. We need to get our window areas, and we're only looking for gross window areas. So we're going to back up a little bit. We're going to open our tape measure, and it's going to give us our window areas on each side. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go on all 4 sides, or I'm not going to go through the full calculation for all 4 sides. But you can see that the windows are the dimensions of the windows are provided on each side of the house. So you can enter those, you can calculate those and enter those. And again, you can of course use a standard desk calculator, but you can also enter those values in here if you want to calculate your window areas. So in this case, we have 72 square feet on the front. We have 108 square feet on the back. And we have 36 square feet on each side. Now, the only other thing we need to do is get the window characteristics. So back inside the house, we need to take a look at what we have for the windows. I'm going to put my tape measure away. We don't need it anymore. If you click on the window, it's going to give you a couple of things. You'll see this, what's called an emissivity or E-meter. If there's no E coating on the window, then it will stay dark like it shows here. If there is an E coating or an emissivity coating, you get a bright green light on the display here. We're also going to look at the photo to see what kind of window we have. This is one of the big improvements we made to the sim. So we can readily see that that's a double pane wood framed window. Looking through the window, we can see that it's tinted as compared to looking through an untinted space. So we have all the information we need for our windows. Again, like the walls, the windows are always the same on all four sides. We don't know the actual specifications. So here, that would be if you have a new house and you have the U value and the SHGC values, you could enter those. We don't have that here. We know that it's a double pane window and that it's wood or vinyl and that it is tinted. And our last step is our systems. So we want to collect the information about our heating, cooling, and our hot water systems. In this case, we have a window air conditioner. The primary thing we need on this is its efficiency. And I don't remember. Eric, does the label say that, or are we just using defaults here?
We use the default from the assessor calculator for all window units.
Okay. So let's go down to the crawl space right quick, and we're going to look at our furnace. So we have a gas furnace here. We have what's called an induced draft gas furnace. There are pictures in the documentation that shows you how to distinguish between the furnace types. We're going to click on the label. And it's going to, based on the serial number and a website, I'm going to skip the website again in the interest of time, that will tell you how to interpret this serial number to date the system. In this case, the 0402 indicates that the date of the system was February of 04. Based on those pieces of information, and we're going to go back to our assessor calculator one more time, and we're going to determine the equipment efficiencies. So in this case, we have a gas furnace. Again, our comments told us that it was well maintained. We know that it's 2004, so we're 13 years old. And based on the fact that it's an induced draft furnace, we're going to start with a 0.82 efficiency. If you have better information than is provided here, if you've got an Energy Star sticker or an Energy Guide sticker on this equipment that says what it was when it was installed, use that information instead. In this case, we don't have that, so we're going to use our defaults, which means in this case that we're going to use an efficiency of 0.77. So the furnace provides us with 100% of our heat. It's a central gas furnace. We do know the efficiency because we've calculated it. Throughout the sim, you're going to calculate the equipment efficiency. You can use an install date in the sim. If you do it, it's going to be incorrect. But when you get out into the real world, please use efficiency as much as possible. Using the tool, you should be able to provide it most of the time. The system derates quite a bit if you enter the equipment install date. For our air conditioner, we know that it's a room air conditioner. Our efficiency calculator tells us that for a room air conditioner, we're always going to use a efficiency value of 9. So we do know the efficiency, and we know that it's 9. We also need to look at the ducts. I'm going to back up a little bit and just take a look at the ducts. In this case, they're not insulated. If they're kind of this buff color, they're not shiny, that would indicate that they're uninsulated. If they are insulated, you'll see it. It's much more shiny looking, and it will have a number like an R8 on the side of it. In this case, the ducts all of them are in the crawl space. So again, it's a single-story house. They are not sealed. We always assume they're not sealed. And in this case, they are not insulated. And the last piece of information we need is the water heater. In this case, we just need to know that it's an electric storage. Again, if we go back to our calculator, it gives the defaults for our water heaters. An electric storage is a 0.87. We have an electric storage water heater. We do know the energy factor, and we're going to use the default. So all in all, I didn't do too badly. I got most everything right. So once you're done, go back to home. It's going to ask you, do you want to submit your results? You tell it yes. And it's going to tell you how well you did. So I did all right. You can go back and look at these scores at any time. You do not need to go through every scenario. You can go through as many as you want. Once you feel like you're comfortable with that house, go to the challenge mode. That's here. It will randomly pick one of the 10 houses. You're going to work through that. As long as you score higher than a 90, you don't need to do any more. If you have any trouble with anything, you're welcome to go back to the training house and work through it a little bit more. But once you get 90 on the challenge house, move to the next one and work through it. So that's the sim. I didn't talk too much about the differences between the old and the new. Those of you who have used the old probably recognized a lot of the differences. But that's where we are now. I think it's a lot better than it was. It's a little more intuitive, hopefully a little easier to get through. But we want your feedback. As you work through it, let us know what's going on as you work through it, how it's working for you. And we'll do our best to answer and address those concerns as you work through it. And now I will go back to the questions if I can figure out how to get there. Help me, Maddie, help me. No, this doesn't show for this. Oh, you guys have been busy. Let's see. To find a local partner, go to our website, homeenergyscore.gov. All of our partners are listed there, and as well as their contact information. As far as do the partners charge a fee, that's up to them. Most of them are not at this point, but again, that's up to them.
Glenn, can I just add one thing? This is Joan.
This is Joan Glickman. She works for the Department of Energy. She is the program manager for Home Energy Score. She's the big kahuna.
I feel like a big kahuna. Anyway, just wanted to make sure that it was clear that there's a couple national partners. So ASHI and InterNACHI are national partners. BPI is a national partner. Inspection Depot just joined as a partner that is doing QA and will be doing QA and mentoring along for some of those other partners that do national stuff but don't necessarily do the QA and mentoring. So if you don't find someone in your area specifically, there are those national options. And also, I guess I'll say one more thing, which is that if you're interested, if folks are interested, we can send a follow-up email with maybe a general presentation on home energy score, because as Glenn said, that wasn't really the purpose of this one. But for those of you who have more general questions, we can either send you a link to a previous webinar or send you a PDF of a presentation that goes through some of these other more basic programmatic questions.
Thank you, Joan. There's a question here, they've had some inspectors wash out in the past. Do you think I'd like for them to go back and give it another try? Let us know if it's better. We think that it is. We think that they should be able to get through it quicker. It's a little more intuitive. So certainly I'd like them to give it a shot. Let us know. Again, to sign up, work through a local partner. There's a question here about the calculator. We have made them the same throughout. In the past, yes, you could go back and change your answers. We decided the trade-off was worth it to provide you the instantaneous feedback, because before you couldn't go back in to look at what you gave, what the answer that you gave, or why you gave it. Now, when you see that you've made a mistake, you can review why you got the answer you did and determine where your error is. So we felt that this was a better feedback mechanism. Eric, the question is, do the green and red checks work in the challenge houses? I don't know.
Yeah, I believe they work in the challenge homes, but they do not work in the test home. And the test home, they can go back and change answers when they're taking the test home. Okay. But in challenge homes, those things are still functioning. The thing about that is they can do challenge homes a limited number of times. If they see they're getting a bunch of red X's, they can just start the scenario over again. And when they just keeping in mind that when you start a challenge home over, it's going to be a random challenge home. It's not going to be the exact same one you probably just had. So.
There's a question here about framing factors. All we're doing is entering cavity insulation values. Again, we're only looking at cavity values. Let's see. Sorry, I'm slowly working through the questions. Some of them I've already answered.
So while you're doing that, Glenn, one thing I want to point out, that when you finish a scenario in just the regular training mode or even in challenge mode, and you go to that report at the end, there's little plus marks next to those categories, and you can open up and see all your answers and see the correct answers and the point values. So, and essentially, the sim's going to give you all the correct answers to the homes you're assessing when you're doing the training, when you're in the training mode and the challenge modes. Of course, you won't get that. You won't get that with the test house. It's not going to give you all the answers in the test house, but.
What is? Too many things open now. Okay, I wouldn't open too many things.
Are you looking for your report?
Yeah. Right now, I seem to have tied things up completely. I got too many things going on. There's a question about incorporating the calculator into the interface. I'd like nothing better, but we're spreading our resources where we can, and that one hadn't gotten high enough up the list yet.
So the calculator is simply a spreadsheet. It's a Excel spreadsheet, and our recommendation is just when you first log on to the sim, just download that calculator to your desktop and keep it with you. You'll use it after the sim as well, and it's essentially the same calculator we've been using for the. It has a different date from the one we were using previously, but it's the same calculator we've been using for the past year. We haven't changed any of the algorithms or anything. So the best thing to do is just download that thing and keep it. If we change something in the calculator as far as the algorithms or the calculations go, we will send that out to all assessors to make sure they have the most up-to-date one.
Eric, this one's for you because I'm not sure. Can you save your work partway through and go back to it?
So yeah, if you look on your screen over there on the left side, there's it looks like an old little floppy disk. I haven't tried that function, but supposedly you can save a scenario in the middle. I don't think you can do that with the test house or the challenge mode, but that's why that function is there. So if you go to the report, this is what I was talking about. So if you click open these little plus boxes, you'll see over on the right side, you'll see the answers, correct answer in the first column, your answer in the second column, and the point value, and if you got dinged for it or not, and if you look up under the second one, he put number of bedrooms, he put 3, and that shows up as red. It shows you the correct answer is 2, and it shows you that his points, he lost a point for that. So that input is worth 1 point, and he got 0 for it.
Let me get back to my questions. You do need to have the square footages exact. Since we give you the exact dimensions, we're looking to see that you can calculate those accurately. The question is the HES used by weatherization companies? We're talking with some weatherization agencies about using it. That's very early in the discussion at this point. I think the only one that's doing it right now is SEAL, S-E-E-L, and I can't think of what those letters stand for, in Kentucky. There's a question about how long is the application good for. Talk to your provider, your partner, and confirm with them that you're still good to go, and then they will let us know. Can you change answers on the challenge homes? No, only on the test house. Yes, you have to have a partner before testing. You do not have to be BPI certified to use the simulation. You have to sign up through a partner. They will validate your credentials. The required credentials are available on the homeenergyscore.gov website. It's typically things like home inspector, BPI building analyst, and HERS rater are acceptable. Most NATE certifications are acceptable, but the full list is on our website. Brian, I'm not sure I understand your question about the files, but if you want to give me a call or send me an email, I'll with a little more detail, I'll try to answer that for you. It can be used for new homes, but again, work with a local partner to implement that. There is a form that's available for collecting the data. I think it's actually on our website. but it's some of the resources that's provided when you become an assessor. The primary user for the software, most of our partners are home performance with Energy Star type implementers, but that's growing quickly. We've got more and more home inspectors coming on all the time, and we're broadening our reach as much as we can. Yes, Connecticut has the most scores at this point. They just recently passed New Jersey. There is no HPXML output from Home Energy Score. The Home Energy Score does provide improvements. They are based on 10-year payback with state average utility rates and national average installation costs, so they don't always align with what's desired locally. We do have the ability, there is the ability to provide custom recommendations, but I'm not going to go through that right now. That's information you'll be provided when you become an assessor. You do have to stay active. You need to score a house at least every 6 months. If you don't, you will get a notice saying that you've become inactive. The only requirement is that within the next 6 months you have to do what we call a refresher, which basically means you have to go in and do a challenge home. You've got to score better than a 90, and we'll reactivate you. It's not any higher a hurdle than that. We're just looking to make sure that you maintain your skills. Most people, it's just a quick run through. It's not as though this is something that you can't remember. In a very general sense, the Home Performance with Energy Star program is a program where they're doing energy assessments and making recommendations and usually providing some sort of installation for those improvements. Home Energy Score and HERS are both rating systems that may or may not provide recommendations. Their primary output is their scores, their ratings. Home Energy Score is trying to get out to the HERS ratings are generally for new homes. That's been their primary focus. Home Energy Score is focused more on existing homes. We'd like to see more and more. The idea is that it's a miles per gallon sort of sticker for the house. We all understand what that is for a car. We'd like it to become as prevalent for houses so that time of sale and things like that, high efficiency homes, higher scoring homes get credit for that. There's evidence that they will sell faster and potentially for more money. So we're looking to get Home Energy Score out there and recognized so it gets picked up and people get credit for it. We do not have a registry at this point. There are some organizations out there that are working on ways to get this information out to the public. We are working with the realtor organizations and the local MLSs to get this implemented and on those sites as well. We are making progress. The Home Energy Score does not use any billing data. There's a question about having been a rater an assessor in the past. It looks like it was quite some time ago. You'll need to start from the beginning. As far as advertising collateral, once you become an assessor, there is some what we call word blocks, some things you can download from there that you can add to brochures, business cards, name tags, things like that. But you're provided access to that once you become an assessor. Yes, to remain active, you must score a house at least every 6 months. And it can't be the same house you scored sometime in the past. It has to be a new house. Looks like we have a couple more minutes. I think I've been through everybody's questions. If I missed any, I apologize. You're welcome to send those to assessor@sra.com, and we will try to get back to you as quickly as we can. We got a few more coming in. The question about HERS, home energy score, and EPS is just more than I can handle right now. Blower door and duct testing are not required. We can take a blower door test result. We cannot take a duct blaster test result. The home energy score doesn't account for luxury electricity use. And it looks like we're done. It looks like we're right at 4 o'clock. I appreciate your attention. Hopefully I haven't bored you too badly. Erik, again, I thank you more than you know for your time here, as well as all the time that you've spent getting this looking as good as it does. Thank you again for your attention, and have a nice day.